This week on Motor Week, Ginny Buckley drives the revised BMW Z3. Richard Hammond drives Peugeot's gorgeous 406 Coupe. And guest presenter Patrick Watts gets a TV exclusive first drive of the Elise Sport from Lotus.
Going topless can be a rather risky business, as one national newspaper has recently discovered. But if you are determined to go topless and enjoy the delights of summer, then a far more sensible option is to get your top off your Roadster. It's hard to believe that it's 10 years since Mazda first launched the MX-5 and created the rebirth of the Roadster. And as the manufacturers realised that we're suckers for a cute little convertible, it was quickly followed by a succession of gorgeous models for us to choose from. The SLK, Fiat's Barchetta, the MGF, and of course, 007's choice, the BMW Z3. Now, although the gorgeous Z3 was good enough for James to chase those bad guys in, the motoring world was split. Underpowered, not butch enough, a hairdresser's car, all phrases that were bandied around about it. Well, the doubters can eat their words now, because this is the new Z3 and it looks terrific. Now, it may not seem that long since the previous model hit the roads, but there are new versions due of both the MGF and the SLK, and of course Honda have just launched the S2000. It may make for a few unhappy owners of the current model, but at least it shows that BMW aren't a company to rest on their laurels. At first glance, the changes are very subtle. It's only when you get the two cars side by side that you realise the new version has had a huge testosterone injection. It's been working out and it now has one hell of a rump. It's got a redesigned rear bumper. The boot lid has been redesigned to feature these L-shaped light clusters. But the most noticeable thing are the gorgeous curves on the wheel arches. The whole look is squatter and it's lower. This car now looks just as good from the rear end as it does from that gorgeous bulging bonnet. And it's not only cosmetic changes that have beefed the Z3 up. There are changes to the engines lineup as well. There are now 4 engines in the range. A 2-litre straight 6 replaces the 4-cylinder 1.9, and the entry-level model is a new 1.8 version that costs just under 20 grand. The 2.8 engine now features BMW's double Vanos valve timing, which gives it greater mid-range punch, and the powerful M Roadster remains unchanged and still tops the range. This is the £23,000 2-litre straight 6. Now it shares its engine with the superb 520i and it feels very impressive in the Z3. It also features BMW's latest double Vanos technology. What this means behind the wheel is that the engine feels very torquey right throughout the range. 0 to 60 takes just 9 seconds and it has a top speed of 130 miles an hour. There are, of course, a few important considerations that go towards making a great roadster. Of course, it needs to be rear-wheel drive and front-engined, which this is. It has to have tight, precise steering and fantastic handling, which this has. And it needs to have a great gearbox. And this 5-speed manual version feels just perfect. It's slick. All it takes is a flick of the wrist and you're working your way through the gears. It just makes a fantastic driving experience. There is an option of an automatic box, but why on earth would you want it? Working your way up and down the gears is what makes driving a roadster such fun and so involving. Automatics belong in large cars, and that's where they should stay. Yes, I like this car a lot. Get this 2-litre version out on the open road and I can't think of many experiences that are quite so satisfying. In fact, the ride is so good that I can forgive this Z3 its very uninspiring interior, which is straight out of the BMW Compact. The changes in here are very subtle, unfortunately. There's a colour-coded panel in the middle, some nice new silver trim on the dials, but the steering wheel still doesn't adjust, which is something that you want in a car like this. And the control panel for the electric hood has also been moved. It's now just at the back here. This 650 quid electric option means that you don't even need to get out of the car to put your top on anymore. It is a very nice luxury, but the standard hood is so easy to operate that it really is a luxury. Once the hood's up, you'll see that it now has an interior lining, which is very welcome. It'll help to keep out the cold on those nasty winter mornings, and it will also make the ride quieter. Although one noise that it doesn't stifle, I'm happy to say, is the wonderful tune that's now played out of the twin exhaust pipes. And now it's time for the crunch, because this is my car. I love the old Z3 so much that I bought the 1.9 version. So would I swap this for the 2-litre version that now replaces it? Well, it's a hard decision. Maybe it's a girl thing, and I'm sure that lots of you out there won't agree with me, but I do prefer the testosterone-free lines of the old model. But having said that, the new 2-litre engine is far superior in terms of performance. So when you weigh it all up, I think I'd have to say that I'd take the 2-litre. Right, where's a local dealer? How much for 98 on an S?
It is beautiful, isn't it? When Peugeot commissioned Pininfarina to design the new 406 Coupe, it must have been like lighting the touch paper on a firework, sitting back and waiting. And when the ensuing explosion arrived, they must have been delighted. It does withstand closer examination like any piece of sculpture. And these small buttresses down the rear of the window architecture hint at something special. The clean lines of the rear are continued around the sides with just a subtle swelling at the haunches, and then little else down the sides to the front of the car, where the nose is quietly confident and assertive, perhaps, rather than overtly aggressive. These lines down the bonnet, well, you don't even notice them until you stare closely at the front of the car, and they define the shape of the front of the car. It's all very subtle and very elegant and results in a very beautiful car, which makes it all the more surprising that Peugeot decided to kit it out with the interior from an old Parisian taxi. The dash is more or less taken straight from the standard 406, the only real difference being these chrome bezels surrounding the dials, which is hardly the stuff of fantasy. Then underneath we have a strata of this odd, shiny, scratchy plastic, and then right underneath, on the centre console, we have a reappearance of the dreaded elephant hide plastic that's seen adorning the interior of the 206, and I don't like it at all. Mind you, it is a genuine 4-seater. There's room in the back of the car for 2 proper grown-ups, and there's a really neat trick for getting them in and out. Forward and back, and forward and back. I'm sure I could break it eventually, but it would probably take me ages. So, is it just a pretty face? Is all of this just makeup, or is its beauty more than skin deep? Has the 406 Coupe got what it takes to cut the mustard when you hit the road? In short, yes, it has. This is the 3-litre V6 engine version, an engine that actually makes an appearance in a great many cars. There's the Atlantic Venturi, a French supercar, the Renault Espace and Laguna, to name but a few, and then of course the 406 Saloon and Coupe. Though I have to say, for whatever reason, it seems to make the least interesting noise in this car of all the other cars that it's fitted to. That said, it is a stonker of an engine. There's bags of torque, and once you get it fully on song, it does start to make a reasonably attractive snarl as you progress at speed. Otherwise, the chassis feels fluid and compliant and is a pleasant drive whilst being sporty at the same time. You are aware of that long wheelbase. It's quite a nice car to progress swiftly rather than perhaps cane it around the very tightest of roads. The steering is precise, though I don't like the angle of the steering wheel. It's tilted too far this way. It feels rather like driving a truck at times, and that can't be adjusted out. And the gear lever seems to have the longest throw imaginable. You need arms about 6 foot long. That said, once you engage the gear, it does snick in quite nicely for you. Peugeot are very good at building drivers' cars. They've proved it time and time again. And it's just as well that the 406 is no exception, given the car's sporting looks. But I'd like to introduce an annoying pseudo-philosophical argument here. The 406 Coupe is a beautiful car. It's also a mainstream car, and beauty is seldom mainstream. Some of the cars acknowledged to be the most beautiful in the world, well, part of their appeal is due to their rarity and exclusivity. Now, the 406 Coupe might be the kind of car that sends the fleet manager disappearing to the toilet with a picture of it, but it can hardly claim to be any sort of piece of automotive exotica. That's what's led it to become almost invisible on the road. When I first saw it at a motor show, I was stunned that Peugeot could produce such a beautiful car. Now, not far down the road, it's become just another company car, precisely because Peugeot make it. I'm sure there's a conclusion to be drawn from that. Damned if I know what it is, though. Its beauty is more than skin deep. The handling is exploitable without being challenging. The engine's strong and the face, well, gorgeous. Price-wise, at between 20 and 27 grand, it does sit rather awkwardly between more cheap and ordinary coupes and the likes of the Volvo C70, the BMW 3 Series Coupe, Saab 9.3, Mercedes CLK, and of course the Ford Kuga. And it is always going to be let down and hampered by its miserable interior and by its almost impossible good looks that render it pretty much invisible in a crowd, in much the same way that some supermodels complain that no one ever has the nerve to chat them up in bars.
In part 2 of Motor Week, Patrick Watts with our exclusive first drive of the Lotus Elise Sport.
How many enthusiasts out there would sell their mothers to drive a prototype race car before the car's gone into production? Imagine driving the Viper before the manager's decision to go ahead with the production car.
Or a new Lotus perhaps. This is the new Lotus Sport Elise, and tonight you'll see it moving for the first time on your TV, an exclusive. From the front you'll see it's got lots of aggression. This is a race car. The biggest difference you'll see of the body shell is this long curving roof. It takes you down nice and smooth to the very purposeful rear spoiler. And then we've got a squared off tail, all this adding to the aerodynamics that are required for a race version of the Elise. And under here is the gorgeous Lotus developed 1.8 200 brake horsepower development of the K-Series engine. It revs up to 9,000 RPM and it goes like a rocket. It's beautiful. And inside you can see it's a race car as well. It's a no compromise, lightweight construction race car, minimal dashboard. You've got the stack for the data login. The materials, aluminium, nicely welded up. That's the actual frame of the car, which is almost like the standard cars. Carbon fiber, very neat detailing where the handbrake would normally be. The surround for the gear change, nicely molded carbon fiber. This is a no compromise race car, but beautifully done. If my touring car had ever looked this neat and tidy, I would have been very surprised. This has had a lot of thought put into it, and it's a credit to the engineers that put it together. And this is still the development car. It's going to get better. We've got the fire extinguisher, a must for all smokers, and mandatory obviously. We've got the rollover bar here, safety devices roll cage, just in case a tree falls on you or you happen to turn the car over. Very nice. Can't find the stereo, can't find the heater. Don't think it's there, don't think we need it. This car is straight out of the box. They've whacked a set of springs on it, they've whacked a set of dampers on it, they've got the wheels pointing roughly in the right direction, and if that's the case, this car is going to be bloody good, because to me, it's there already. Okay, a few tweaks on the dampers, a little bit of a tweak on the roll stiffness, and it definitely needs that, but beyond that, it's going to take this from a mega good car to something which is going to be probably the fastest one-make series in the UK. The TBR is going to be slightly quicker down the straights, but come the corner, a TBR will be buried its nose into the tarmac, hard on the brakes. This Elise, I think, will still have its foot down round the corner. Don't even touch the brakes. The grip and the handling are so good. It's going to reward the good driver. The good driver will be able to take what Lotus have put into it and develop it beyond that for individual circuits. to their individual style of driving. I've raced touring cars a lot. They're very satisfying when you get it right. But the actual enjoyment of driving a touring car for the sake of driving a touring car, just not there. They are not fun. It's got to be rear-wheel drive. It's got to be on slicks. And for me, it's got to be a Lotus. I'll be very interested in doing this championship next year. So there we have it. Lotus have put their vast racing heritage behind the development of this Elise. It's going to be a fantastic championship encompassing UK and Europe. Over 45 people have vying for the 25 positions that are available. Only 25 cars will be built for people coming up with 50 grand.
As well as the Esprit 350s and Elise 111s featured in recent motor weeks, the Norwich company is set to launch its own one-make race series for the Elise Sport, featured exclusively here this week. We happen to know that this race car could hint strongly at the spirit of a future Lotus model to sit between the Elise and Esprit. Keep watching Motor Week for some future news on this remarkable company.
The quest continues to change Seat into a serious car manufacturer. Indeed, they now hold the title of Europe's fastest growing car maker, and it's probably not too far from the truth. Following Volkswagen's buyout of Seat a few years ago, they've worked hard and continue to reinvent themselves, especially with their products and that all-important factor, image. And in the shape of the new Toledo, the image seems to be working, but with a hefty price tag. £260 million worth of development has gone into this car alone, but it shows compared to Seats of the past, which hardly set the world on fire. These broad front lights which integrate into the grille, and that all-new Seat badge you'll see on Seat cars of the future. And the exterior of the Toledo seems to bulge in just about all the right places, ensuring it has a very sporty appeal. And side-on looks remarkably like the new BMW 3 Series. Surely it's not been designed with that in mind, but it has been designed to give you lots and lots of space, particularly if you wanted it as a family car with an enormous boot. But the family sector is not what Seat are aiming after with this car. Technically, it's the size of, say, an Astra or a Focus, but size-wise it goes up against the Ford Mondeo and the Renault Laguna in the business sector. Whether that's a wise policy, though, remains to be seen. Within that sector, Seat are battling it out with their competitors over safety, claiming unrivaled standards on the Toledo. These include 7 onboard safety systems, which basically assist you with braking and keep you pointing in the right direction. You also have 4 airbags and 3 3-point seatbelts in the back of the car. Out on the road, the Toledo is actually quite a fun car to drive, ensuring it adheres to the manufacturer's philosophy of enjoy yourself. It shares the same platform as the Audi TT and the Volkswagen Golf. It's all part of VW's philosophy of brands sharing the same platform, but it does seem to work, so you can't quibble with that. The suspension is perhaps a little too hard for my liking, and a lot of road noise comes into the cabin. And if you're travelling at reasonable speeds over, say, rough grounds, the bumps and the creaks do come into the cabin a bit too much. Maybe the suspension just needs to lighten up a bit more, but apart from that, it's really a good drive. Performance is good from this 1.8 litre engine, 0 to 60 time of around 10 seconds and a top speed of 120 miles an hour. But the Toledo to really go for would be that new V5 with its 2.3 litre engine. It's a first for Seat, having an engine over 2 litres and having more than 4 cylinders. And it's a really cracking unit. Now, this new Toledo was developed over the twisting mountain roads in the Catalan region, and that's why you get such a good ride with taut and sharp handling, a lovely smooth, crisp gear change, and a very smooth clutch too. It's an all-round excellent package. Now, one of the best things about the new Toledo is the amount of room inside for the passengers, both in the rear and here in the front. Lots of space, comfortable seats, and also lots of headroom too, thanks to that high roof line. And inside you can see these similarities with its bigger brothers, both the Audi A3 and the Golf. Of course, this car shares the same platform as those two from the VW stable. You get the same sort of quality, the same switchgear and controls too. Rather smart cup holders, a quality stereo system, air conditioning, electric windows all round, and these rather smart chrome door handles, which just round it off. Overall, you'd be foolish to think that the Toledo doesn't have a fighting chance with the opposition, and part of this is to do with its competitive pricing. The 1.6 standard model starts at around £14,200. For this 1.8 20-valve version, priced at around £16,795 on the road. You really don't have to splash out too much more money for the top-of-the-range Toledo either. The V5 2.3 litre is priced at £17,595. And for a change, those extra little luxuries, including climate control and leather seats, come at a reasonable price. So overall, we reckon the Toledo is a relatively good car. You get the benefits of German design engineering, quality components from VW and Audi, plus an excellent size of car for this particular class. It also has a very high specification and styling that means it looks better than the likes of the Mondeo and the Laguna. Seat are a manufacturer that are going places. Beware, they mean business.
Motor Week News. Renault's two MPVs are to be fitted with an advanced 2-litre 140 brake horsepower engine. This features variable valve timing, a first for Renault, previously renowned for its conservative engine lineup. Fitted to the Espace, it replaces the old 2-litre and should provide a useful performance boost for the big 7-seater, bridging the gap to the V6 model. Meanwhile, in the Scenic, it looks set to create the first hot mini MPV. Next week on Motor Week, Ginny Buckley looks at the new Subaru Legacy. Ian Royle pits the Range Rover against its rival from Toyota, the Amazon. And Richard Hammond goes green laning. Next week on Motor Week.